This video is brought to you by Audience Gaslight Services. When viewers reject your protagonist, don't ask what went wrong. Ask what's wrong with the audience. Our patented perception correction system helps you reframe selfishness as strength, rebrand cruelty as confidence, and convert poor character construction into bold storytelling. If the audience doesn't connect, we'll provide pre-written statements explaining why they're uncomfortable with power. Audience Gaslight Services. Because character development is optional, but narrative control is forever.
Okay, one of my favorite films of all time was Superman 2. And when I was a kid, my dad used to take me and my sister to the drive-in, and we watched it. And almost every weekend we would go. It seems like it was on all summer. It was just one of my fondest memories. And one of my favorite scenes in that film is when Superman, he swoops in and he saves this woman and her baby from being crushed under a big antenna, and she hollers up and says thank you, and he parks that antenna right on top of Nod, and then General Zod, he's up there watching this, and he says, this Superman is nothing of the kind. I've discovered his weakness. He cares. He actually cares for these Earth people. And Ursa, one of my favorites, she turns to Zod and says, like pets? And Zod says, well, I suppose so. And it's just one of the funnier parts of my childhood memory. I always enjoyed watching that film. But it kind of defines Superman to a T. I mean, Superman, he's a godlike being with darn near infinite power. And Zod identifies him, his defining trait, and he frames that compassion as weakness. But the audience understands that it's a strength. The girl boss comes along now, and we've got this strong female character, and I'm not against a strong female character. The problem is what they call a strong female character, I call it a villain. And because heroism is not defined by power. Heroism is defined by sacrificial care. It's defined by what is a hero willing to sacrifice. Superman is never defined by his power, not by good writers. He's defined by his concern for the helpless and his willingness to sacrifice for them. And what does he sacrifice? Just godhood, for one thing. He could have, or he could do anything that he wants. Who could stop him? But he sacrifices his chances at a normal life and a love life many times, depending on the incarnation. So, my core thesis here is that heroes are defined by what they are willing to sacrifice for others. Not by competence, not by dominance, confidence, or independence. But they're defined by their attachment and their responsibility, their vulnerability, and their sacrifice. Care must cost something, and without cost, there is no heroism. Modern writers confuse the two. You see, pain is just something that happens to you. But sacrifice, or the cost, is something that you choose, and that's what makes the difference between a hero and not a hero. So there's this big culture war. We've got strong female characters, and they spark their debates online, and one side will call them empowering, and another side just calls them toxic girl bosses. But the real issue isn't feminism at all. The issue is, well, okay, let me call it what it is. It's bad writing. But it's also insulation. Now, just let me define insulation. It's when a character's choices never cost them anything, emotionally, relationally, or materially. When characters are written without any meaningful sacrifice, audiences automatically disconnect. So Superman, he's a positive model. He's sacrificial care in action. His compassion makes him vulnerable. Zod mocks him for caring, but caring defines his strength. You know, it's kind of exemplified in that scene where Superman appears to give up, and he flies north to the Fortress of Solitude, but he hasn't given up. He's decided that to continue this fight in a densely populated area is dangerous to the people. He would rather bring the fight to his home ground, his home turf, rather than endanger the lives of the citizens of Metropolis. And it works. It's a tactic that works. Watch the movie. You've got Ripley from Aliens. And I'm going to tell you something, the greatest line ever delivered in science fiction history is, "Get away from her, you bitch." And let me tell you something, when Ripley says that, she's earned it at that point. She returns to danger voluntarily, and she risks her life to help Newt. Her strength is rooted in protection. That protective fury is earned through sacrifice. She is willing to put her life on the line for somebody else. And it works because that line works because it cost her something. And she's not out for vengeance against the xenomorph queen. She's just out to protect Newt. And that's the difference. And one that makes Ripley such a cornerstone in science fiction storytelling. I'll just touch on another great female character. Everybody on the internet's talked about these two, Ripley and Sarah Connor, but they're good examples. Sarah Connor, her life is oriented around protecting John. Her brutality is rooted in care. If you remove that protective motive, she becomes unhinged. With care, with her sacrificial care, with her concern for humanity and her concern for John Connor, her son, she's heroic. You remember when she went to kill Miles Dyson? She went to murder a man that she thought she hated because of the apocalypse that he was going to bring. But when she got there, she couldn't do it. She couldn't bring herself to commit cold-blooded murder. She cared. That was her driving force. She cares about humanity. And that's why she could be so brutal in her protection of her son John. If you remove that care for humanity through John, it's represented through her son John, then she's just an unhinged prepper helicopter mom. She knows that John will save humanity. She cares for humanity, so she cares for John. Spider-Man, another great example. He's a man who cannot walk away. He has the ability to do something to help others, and he actually cares about other people. It's a burden. It's a sacrifice. He cares. You take away Spider-Man's care for mankind, his willingness to sacrifice for people that he doesn't even know, and what have you got? Why would he sacrifice his own happiness and his chance at a normal life? Without sacrifice, Peter Parker is just a nut with spider powers running around the city in his pajamas. You got Batman. He's another great example of trauma redirected into protection. He expresses his care, his concern for his fellow man differently than Superman. He's got grim restraint and relentless duty. He's got a different style, but he's got the same engine. It's an outward obligation. If Batman were focused only on vengeance, he would have no problem killing his opponents. He would be a less intriguing version of Punisher, with just a sillier suit. There's a failure pattern. You've got insulated heroes. Certain modern characters are written as hyper-competent, emotionally detached, and rarely wrong. Also, they're rarely sacrificial, and they are rarely vulnerable. They act because they can, not because they care. They suffer inconvenience, not real transformation. And this reads as self-centered. And when the audience reads that, they disconnect. A hero who sacrifices nothing feels hollow, and the audience knows that on an instinctive level. Male examples of some of this failure. We do have some male examples of this, and I could probably find dozens of them, but none of them ever made their mark in culture. So I thought I'd pick a couple that are kind of in the cultural mindset of today. One of them is Black Adam. Now, he's power-driven. He's dominant without any meaningful sacrifice. He's got grievance, and that somehow replaces service. The audience reaction was pretty much indifference. I'm going to go to Star Trek, Into Darkness, Kirk. In that film, I couldn't connect with the man because he acts impulsively. After Captain Pike's death, Chris Pine's Kirk is driven by vengeance, not justice. And he only suffers temporary consequences. I mean, he makes a big boo-boo at the beginning of the film, and he only loses his starship for about 5 minutes. He's got, I don't know, he just had emotional insulation. And if you contrast that with earlier portrayals like William Shatner's original Captain Kirk from the original series, and you've got that episode of Obsession, yes, Kirk was acting like a prick, but it was out of his concern for his failure to protect his fellow crewmen, his fellow men, his fellow beings. And he was obsessed with killing that creature because he cared. At the underlying, under it all, Captain Kirk really did care, especially in that episode. It doesn't. Anyway, you got to watch that. It's really good. So audiences feel the failure. Most viewers, like me, we can't really articulate why something doesn't work, why it's not clicking for us. You know, we just simply look at a character and say, well, that didn't work. Doesn't work for me, or worse, I don't think I'll be watching or reading that again. Or buy it. The subconscious reads, no sacrifice equals no bond. And audiences connect to cost, not dominance. So let's reframe the girl boss issue. And it isn't necessarily a Mary Sue issue. It's a failed template, and it often includes independence without attachment, power without service or sacrifice or care, confidence without vulnerability, and victory without any cost. The problem is not strong women. The problem is characters badly written without sacrificial care. The same failure applies to male characters. A hollow hero is hollow regardless of the gender. It's a craft fix. For those of you who want to write stories that people connect to, ask of every hero, what do they love? What will they protect? What are they willing to lose? What will it cost them? And do the consequences stick? Sacrifice creates emotional gravity. Dominance creates meaningless spectacle. Audiences bond to sacrifice. All right. When heroes stop sacrificing, they stop being heroes. The culture war argues about representation. It's the culture war focuses on the gender, the girl boss, the toxic feminist, the toxic male. That's not the issue. If you want audiences to connect to your story and come back for more, they don't connect to power. They connect to sacrifice. Superman is all-powerful, but audiences connect to him because he cares. You got characters like Captain Marvel and Valkyrie. I'm sorry, but it's not their gender. It's the fact that they don't care. They're actually very selfish beings. And that's the same with Black Adam, and it's the same with Captain Kirk in Star Trek Into Darkness. These people are self-centered. They're not likable people. They're not good people. The power level doesn't matter. It's the care level, the concern level, the sacrificial level. That's what matters to people. That's what brings people back for more. Make your character care about something and sacrifice her or his or their life for it. And the audiences will connect to them and come back for more. Thank you for listening.